Welcome to the Candidates Forum sponsored by the North Peninsula Democratic Club. We're going to now have two candidates for the 11th Senatorial District, which encompasses the northern sections of San Mateo County and the southern sections of the city of San Francisco. We have two candidates with us, Jane Kim and Scott Wiener, and the format will be each one of you will have a 1-minute opening statement. We then have 3 questions which were provided to me this morning. I had not seen these before 3 hours ago, but I have seen it for the last 3 hours. You will have 1 minute to answer each question. There'll be a 45-second rebuttal should you choose. And then after we've gone through that process, if there are questions from the audience, then you will have the same 1 minute and then a 45-second rebuttal. And then we'll conclude with 1 minute closing statements. This is being recorded by Millbrae Community Television, and a link will be provided to you. If you're viewing it, you think it's worthwhile, you can put it up on your websites. They did that for me and I didn't do any of that, so I let that go. So we're going to begin with, we've been alternating the spots. Who starts first? Scott, you're in the starting spot, and then we'll alternate with the questions. So for 1 minute, candidate Scott Wiener. Scott?
1 minute? Great. Short and sweet. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having us today. It's an honor to be here. I am running to succeed the great Mark Leno to represent San Francisco and northern San Mateo County in the state Senate. I'm honored to have Senator Leno's endorsement in this race, in addition to the endorsement of the Democratic Party and all 5 members of the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors. I am a nearly 20-year resident of San Francisco. I've worked very hard, whether as a neighborhood association president or building the LGBT community center or chairing the Democratic Party to make our city a better place. On the Board of Supervisors, I have focused extensively on improved public transportation. I represent San Francisco regionally on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and have worked with Caltrain and with BART and will continue to do that in the state Senate. I've worked to expand access to health care, affordable housing, and to increase water recycling and solar energy. We have many challenges in this state, and it would be a deep honor to represent our community as the state moves forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Supervisor. Jane Kim, you're up.
Thank you. I'm not as tall as Scott, so I can actually stand and actually reach the mic. My name is Jane Kim. I also serve on the San Francisco Board of Supervisors, and over the last 10 years, both on the school board and on the Board of Supervisors, I've really been working to fight for middle class and working class families. A key part of my work on the board has been fighting for and winning the most affordable and middle class housing in San Francisco. We need to make sure that those that are working full time, whether you are a nurse or working in a restaurant or you're a teacher, have a place to live in the city that they work in, and that has been a key part of my work. Second, a big part of my life has been K through 12 education. I'm really proud of the fact that 8 out of the 10 school board members here in Daly City, Colma, Pacifica have endorsed me in my race. During my time on the Board of Education, I have worked in Sacramento and DC to fight for higher per pupil spending. We know that that is absolutely one of the most important ways to equalize our playing field, ensure that everyone has the opportunity to succeed. And I will absolutely be a huge advocate for funding for schools in San Mateo as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. All right, after the 1 minute statement, we're now going to proffer 3 questions. Each one will have a minute to respond to the questions, and then should you choose, after both have spoken, there'll be a 45-second rebuttal. If you choose, rebuttals often tend to be extension of the original remarks, but nonetheless. So Supervisor Kim, first question to you. How do you feel about, this is going to be a surprise, affordable housing in San Mateo County? Do you have a position on that?
Well, one, I want to make sure that we're providing the resources that San Mateo County needs to build more affordable, middle income, and workforce housing. I have really been inspired by the work that San Mateo Community College has done to build teacher and faculty housing on their surplus property. We need to make sure that we do more of that. I've already been talking with the Jefferson Elementary and High School District School Board members like Murray Brizuela and Clayton Koo to see how we can actually build teacher housing. It is a huge issue in San Francisco. There is not a single home in San Francisco that a 2-teacher household can afford to buy, and that is increasingly becoming the case in Daly City as well. Daly City has one of the lowest paid teachers in the San Mateo County, and part of my work will be making sure that we can equalize the funding inequities that we see throughout San Mateo, make sure that Daly City is able to compete for the great teacher workforce that you need and not lose it because neighboring counties can afford to pay a little bit more and teachers can't afford to live here. Housing and teacher salary will be 2 major issues that I plan on fighting for in Sacramento for this area.
Thank you, Scott. Same question.
Great. Yeah, this is it's the issue, not just in San Francisco, but the Bay Area. And I think in the past, in the state legislature, there was not a lot of momentum for housing affordability issues because there were only certain areas of the state that were in perpetual crisis, San Francisco being one of them. We've now seen the crisis spread to more parts of San Mateo County, other parts of the Bay Area, to Los Angeles. This is more and more becoming a regional, statewide issue that requires regional and statewide approaches. No city can solve its housing crisis on its own. And the state actually is in a perfect position to provide not just funding, which is important to help us build housing for low-income seniors, for formerly homeless people, and so forth, but to provide the right incentives so that all communities are participating in creating housing. We need this to be a collaborative, regional, and statewide effort where we say, the Bay Area is growing by 2 million people in the next 25 years. How are we going to house that additional 2 million people? We have to have more housing.
Now you have 45 seconds for rebuttal.
Okay, one project I did want to talk about that I negotiated in San Francisco was a major housing development, actually in the Giants parking lot on surplus property owned by the city. I negotiated with the Giants to ensure that in their 1,000-unit housing development that they're building, that 40% of these units will achieve affordable middle-income housing status. No other city in the country has ever reached that level of on-site affordable housing. And we made sure that the teachers were in the negotiating room with us, that we were fighting for their income levels as well. So actually close to 30% of the housing on that site will be reserved for families of 4 that make between $80,000 and $150,000 a year. People that make very good income, but now here in San Francisco, we have to work to fight to provide for. And I'm very interested in replicating that here in San Mateo, working with our school districts and local government on their surplus property to see how we can achieve those same types of projects here that will be built for the residents.
Scott?
Great. So subsidized affordable housing is incredibly important, and I completely support it, but that will never be enough in terms of the resources to solve our housing affordability crisis. I have been very aggressive in pushing the envelope on housing policy, whether it is starting the process, which we've now completed in San Francisco, to allow not just legalization of the existing 30 to 40,000 illegal in-law units in San Francisco, but to allow people to add new in-law units into their homes or buildings, and we're now moving forward, and that is incredibly important. I authored the legislation to make it easier for universities to build student housing. We have an enormous number of college and grad students who have nowhere to live. And then I authored legislation to streamline the approval process for affordable housing. In San Francisco, it can take 3 or 4 years to approve affordable housing with no opposition, where we have the land and we have the money. It should never take a long period of time. And the legislation I authored will streamline that process.
And here in the county, we're proud of CSM and Kenyatta College for their housing for employees. That sort of sets a standard, if you will, for the juxtaposition of school district land and affordable housing. All right, the second question is for Scott to start. Generally, can you talk a little bit about any thoughts you have regarding public transportation in San Mateo County, specifically in the north portion?
Boy, in a minute. So as I mentioned, I have the honor of representing San Francisco on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. I've worked incredibly closely with Adrian Tissier, as well as Alicia Aguirre, and with Kevin Mullen before he went to the legislature, on these two counties where we have a county line, but we are really together. And we rise or fall together with transportation. We know that the Highway 101, the 280 are just into disaster territory in terms of congestion. I have worked very closely with San Mateo County to make sure that we're electrifying Caltrain, that we're bringing Caltrain into the 21st century, increasing its capacity. I've worked very closely with BART on its capital and state of good repair needs. We have to stop the system from unraveling, and we've worked on other issues such as the bus rapid transit to start linking the two counties and making sure that bus service is good between the two counties. I will continue to be a regional leader on public transportation, just as I've been the #1 champion in City Hall for public transportation. It is an absolute passion for me, and we need more resources from the state.
Supervisor Kim?
Public transportation, very similarly, public education is vastly underfunded by the state, but are two key infrastructure needs here, both in San Mateo and San Francisco and throughout the state. I serve on the Transbay Joint Powers Authority, where I serve with representatives of Caltrans and AC Transit, and we are working to make sure that we build a regional transit system that is able to get us through our multi-counties easily and successfully. I think that as we work on long-term capital projects like electrification and high-speed rail and another BART tube, that we have to also consider investing more deeply in things like buses and ferries that in the meantime can help cover some of the gap that we're seeing in terms of the immense increased congestion today. Second, I represent the part of San Francisco that includes the downtown area, and so I've worked very closely with the San Francisco County Transportation Authority to get an HOV carpool lane on the 101 as you are exiting and going down south, so that we can figure out how to get more people in less cars, but also keeping traffic moving at a better clip on the 101.
Okay. Too many cars, not enough concrete, I guess, is the issue. Rebuttals. Each have 45 seconds. Supervisor Wiener.
Sure. We have, as we grow as a region, just massive transit needs, and we can't have another 1 million cars on the roads of the Bay Area, which is where we're heading if we don't get it together. I have had deep working relationships, for example, with BART, a system that has a lot of the same metal it had in 1972 when it was opened. We recently put on the ballot in San Francisco a sales tax that will contribute significant funds regionally to BART for its vehicle replacement and also to help Caltrain with its modernization program. San Francisco used to be disengaged regionally. I have worked very hard and been part of the core group of people who have helped re-engage San Francisco with our regional partners, because again, San Francisco can't do it alone, San Mateo County can't do it alone, we have to do it together.
Supervisor Kim?
So on top of capital investments, I've also been a big supporter of making sure that those who can't afford to ride on public transit are able to. I was a big support of free muni for low-income youth, as well as free muni for seniors and individuals with disability. We absolutely have to invest in the infrastructure, but we also have to make sure that everyone has access, equal access to our public transportation system, and that those with less have the subsidies provided so that they can move freely for their jobs, their doctor appointments, to school, to after-school programs, and that will be something that I will continue to fight for.
Okay. Third question. You're both obviously Board of Supervisors members, highly qualified, well-educated. Can you tell our audience what distinguishes you from your opponent? And we'll start with Jane.
Sure. The one thing I do say, I just have to start with a compliment, is that I'm very fortunate to work with a hardworking and very smart Board of Supervisors in San Francisco. And it's an honor to go in and have these really good debates that Scott and I have on issues that we really all care about. I have to say that one thing in my record that has been very clear is that I have been a champion and fighter for affordable housing and middle-income housing in San Francisco, and I'm proud of the fact that no member of this board has fought for or won more affordable middle-income housing than everyone else. I've also fought for the strongest tenant protections, knowing that our most vulnerable tenants that face evictions are actually seniors, individuals with disabilities, and immigrants who speak English as a second language. And finally, I think that my track record and my experience in public education does clearly distinguish me. I've spent time on the Board of Education. I've worked in high school, after-school youth programming. I've shown my dedication to education issues. And finally, I have a measure on the ballot in San Francisco, a luxury housing tax, that will work to make City College and community college free for all San Francisco residents. And this is the type of work I plan to bring to Sacramento. I'll take a little less time in my rebuttal.
Okay, Scott?
I think we all choose what our priorities are, and I think you have to look at that in terms of Sacramento. As I mentioned, I've been a champion for public transportation, and I think you look at my record, you'll see that I'm going to be a champion for transit, including regional transit in Sacramento. I have an environmental record where I've authored legislation to increase water recycling and solar energy. The state controls the water and power systems, and we have to address drought and climate change. I will be a champion for the environment in Sacramento. I've also been very vocal and taken a lot of heat for doing this by calling out what I think is the truth, that we need more housing in San Francisco and the Bay Area as we grow, where the current rents are going to start looking cheap. And I have consistently opposed efforts to shut down housing creation. Again, you take a lot of heat for doing that, but we have to have more housing. And that is not just a local issue, it's a regional issue, it's a statewide issue. The legislature and the governor have to be involved in solving this problem.
Okay.
To continue on, as we talk about the importance of housing, I have been very pro-growth in San Francisco, supporting a lot of development, but I don't believe in development without a community process. I've been a strong protector of CEQA and the process that comes along with that. I absolutely think the community should have a robust notification process and ability to appeal. And I have to tell you, every single housing development I have worked on has only gotten better through a process that engages the community. We always win more affordable housing, more open space and parks, more pedestrian safety improvements, because that has often been the only leverage that our community has had to fight for development that is for them. And then just to augment a little bit more of what I was talking about with my ballot measure, I have this luxury housing tax. It is a progressive tax measure that slightly increases the transfer tax for homes and buildings of $5 million, $10, $15, and $25 million above. And when this measure passes, we will be able to use those funds to make community college free again for San Francisco residents. And this is the type of work I want to bring to the entire state of California.
That can't be allocated specifically to City College. It has to be a general tax.
It is a general tax, but we are setting aside a fund that that specifically will allocate it just for City College.
It's a majority plus one.
It's a 50% plus one, but
So
it's
it has to
going
be
to
a
be
general. It has to be a general tax.
It's a general.
It can't be specifically allocated to City College.
Well, we already have introduced a general fund, a special fund, that will capture new revenue that comes in after November 8th from the real estate transfer fund. And we have already, the board will be voting on it this month. It will be allocated to City College. We met with the administration actually yesterday, and the administration is working very quickly to implement this for the August 2017 semester.
Okay. Do you want to comment on that since I open that door a little bit?
Sure, and I support Free City College as well. It is, and I vote, but I did support the transfer tax increase. It is true that it is a general tax. It goes into the general fund, and City College and its students will have to advocate every year for the board and the mayor to appropriate that money so that we can continue to have free City College. I think it's a popular issue. I think there will be a lot of pressure to continue it, but people do need to understand that it will require an appropriation to the budget every year from the Board of Supervisors. It won't be legally dedicated, and in fact, I don't think a transfer tax can be legally dedicated under state law. I might be wrong about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Questions from the audience?
Oh, did I give?
That was a rebuttal.
Oh, those, okay.
I
was going to talk about something else.
I threw another.
Yeah, okay.
The fact that you're both here shows that you recognize this is a district that crosses county lines. These are two constituencies that in the past have had somewhat differing demands. There's been some progress in thinking regionally in terms of transportation needs, but how do you convince the voters south of the county line that items such as affordable housing, regional land use planning, and indeed transportation are truly regional issues, and they're not just benefiting the citizens of San Francisco?
Scott.
Yeah, that's a really great question. And I've done a lot of work regionally, both on transportation and housing, and it is really hard. When we work with the East Bay on BART, for example, and we want a second Transbay tube, which I've advocated for, so BART can run 24 hours and address its capacity needs. There are some in the East Bay who have commented, well, that's a San Francisco project. And my response is, who do you think is using BART? It's East Bay residents overwhelmingly, in terms of the Transbay crossing to come into San Francisco. So sometimes it's just a matter of really working with people so people understand. And it's true with housing as well. And there are towns in San Mateo and Santa Clara counties that absolutely refuse to build any housing, affordable housing or otherwise. And I think it's just a matter of really collaborating regionally to say we want to improve transit regionally and it benefits all parties, but we have to improve housing too. We know Palo Alto is having a huge problem in terms of losing even upper middle class families, and it's a town that has not done enough to build housing. And so it's a matter of continuing that regional conversation and understanding everything impacts everything else.
Okay.
I'll be very honest. Over the past couple of years, I have found regional coordination to be incredibly difficult and challenging because there's so many different interests. And I do ultimately think, at the end of the day, more affordable housing, more middle-class housing, more affordable quality regional public transit is, of course, going to make our district and region stronger. But it takes a lot of time. You have to be willing to put in the time to do community outreach, to get buy-in from stakeholders. When I was on the school board, I learned the hard way. I could pass all the resolutions that I wanted, but if the principals, the teachers, the staff, central office staff didn't have buy-in, it wasn't going to get implemented. So even before I passed legislation, I would spend months, sometimes over a year, just getting buy-in from the very folks that would be implementing the legislation that you write. And I think that that is incredibly important process. And I also think that you can't be afraid to lose. You can't be afraid to lose because in that process, you will educate more and more voters over time until you will eventually win on an issue.
We call that benign neglect. With lack of oversight in the legislature for so many years because of term limits, it's nice that now we have whoever is elected will have a longer time to provide the type of oversight you referenced. Yes.
Firstly, thank you guys for coming. And in San Mateo County Labor Council, as well as all labor, totally strong opposition to, excuse my throat, the gig economy. As we know, that's Airbnb, Uber, and Lyft. So I want to know if you have a relationship with either of them, or have taken monies from them, have any support behind you from the gig economy, because as a Democrat, we're really fighting hard to keep our labor unions together, and that seems to be what really an issue with them, with the gig economy. Thank you.
Okay, and we'll start with Jane on the gig economy.
So in answer to your second question, no, I don't have any contributions from Uber, Lyft, or Airbnb. Second, actually all three of those companies are in the district that I represent, so I do know the main contacts, the community liaisons, and the heads of those three companies. And I have to say, it's a good thing for San Francisco and the Bay Area economy to grow. That is not a bad thing. But we want our businesses to be able to run their business in San Francisco and the Bay Area, but we don't want them to run San Francisco and the Bay Area. So it's about making sure that we are fair, and one of the key issues that I believe with those three companies is absolutely the labor issues. And currently, those three companies, I don't believe currently have really satisfactory responses into how it is treating its workers equitably. They are not just contractors, they are making money for those three companies. And we need to make sure that they are being provided the benefits and the pension, the compensation that labor has been fighting on behalf of those workers.
Scott?
So in terms of the so-called gig economy or ride sharing or home sharing, I've tried to strike a balance where we, for example, with short-term rentals, have good regulation, which we have worked on very hard in City Hall, and collect taxes and increased enforcement, which I've been very supportive of, without killing it off. And with short-term rentals, there are abuses, and I advocate cracking down on that. There are also a lot of people who are house poor, and the one way they have of generating extra income is to rent out a spare room in their place. In terms of ride sharing, the cab system in San Francisco for many years was completely and utterly broken. Anyone who's ever tried to get a cab in the city knows that, and this has revolutionized everything. So no, I would not support trying to shut down ride sharing or shut down short-term rentals, but it has to be well regulated, whether it's to protect housing stock or to protect workers, absolutely. Yeah, that's sort of the approach that I've taken.
Rebuttal?
Well, since I answered the question about contributions,
Oh,
that's okay.
do you want me to do it now? So I've not received a contribution from Airbnb or Uber. I do not recall for Lyft. I'd have to go back and double check that. There are employees who have supported me, and I'm proud of that support. I have 2,500 people approximately have contributed to my campaign. A majority of them have contributed $250 or less. Almost 80% of the money I've raised has come from inside the Senate district. The money I've raised outside of the Senate district has been very minor in comparison. And so I'm really proud of a very grassroots fundraising effort, raising from all sorts of sources. And I'm also proud of the labor support that I have, including from the Teamsters and the building trades and the firefighters and the food and commercial workers and so forth. I'm proud of the broad-based support I have.
Jane?
To speak further, I think that there has to be increasing understanding that we want these companies to be able to do their business, but their businesses do need to be regulated for the safety and health of the regions that they're in. So it's fine if you want to do, if you want to share your couch or your room, but there is going to have to be regulations for it because we need to make sure that you're upholding the same standards as you would get at a hotel, whether you're covered by the same levels of insurance, to make sure that you're not disturbing your neighborhoods and the neighborhoods that you're in, and that you're also limited in the number of short-term rental nights that you can get. There has to be a hard cap if it's a true short-term rental program. Otherwise, you're in a 365-day hotel business and you should be treated as a hotel if that's the line that you go down. I actually do not have even contributions from employees of these three organizations. I'm also very proud to have the support of many of our labor organizations, the nurses, the teachers, AFSCME, SEIU, State Council, that have been working hard to organize many of these workers for Uber and Lyft as well.
Terrific. Substantive comments on both parts. And Tom Lantos once called San Mateo County the center of political rest. When you go up, whichever one of the two of you is elected, please don't forget that we are a booming economy and that we deserve your attention as you go forward representing both San Francisco and northern San Mateo County. Before we have your closing statement, San Mateo County does have Measure K, which is a 20-year extension of a half-cent sales tax with, again, it's a general sales tax, but the focus is going to be on housing, sea level rise, and healthcare. Have either one of you taken a position on Measure K as of this point?
I support it.
I apologize, I've not taken a position yet on Proposition K, but I will take the time to read it and take a position.
I happen to be the chairman of that committee. I just
Got it.
thought I'd get that out.
I will take
All right.
And I would say we do also have a sales tax in San Francisco on the ballot, which I co-authored, that'll dedicate funds to transportation improvements, including Caltrain and BART, and housing for homeless people. It's a really important measure. Supervisor Kim did oppose that on the basis that a sales tax is regressive. We just actually cast a vote very recently on a sales tax for critical municipal services.
And there could be a debate about regressiveness when of increased sales taxes, but this is not the time or the place for it. All right, with that, we have 1 minute close, and we're going to start with Jane.
Check with the audience, please, sir.
I'm sorry?
If the audience has questions.
I think, didn't we get the 2 questions?
Oh, we do.
We got the 2 questions,
Okay.
yeah, thank you. All right, Jane, you have a 1 minute close.
Sure. It has been a tremendous joy actually to get to know the San Mateo communities of Daly City, Colma, and South San Francisco. And 2 things that I'm absolutely committed to, because this will only work if it works for everyone, is that we need to better fund education, K through 12 and community college, and we need to better fund affordable and middle income housing. And I am willing to work and fight with you, as I have in San Francisco, to make sure that we are using every resource and leverage we have, whether it's publicly owned surplus property, whether it's looking at leveraging bonds and parcel taxes, to make sure that we are not only allowing people to be able to afford to live in the Bay Area region, which is such an amazing part of this country, but we are also giving more residents increasing earning power to be able to afford to live, as there continues to be rising costs here in the Bay Area. Again, proud to have the support of the teachers, the nurses, and Sierra Club, and I would love to have the honor of being able to represent you in the state of California and Sacramento. Thank you very much all for your time.
Scott?
Thank you. Thanks for having us today. This election matters a lot. We only have 1 chance to get it right, 1 senator for this area. 1 out of 40 people making decisions for the 6th largest economy in the world. We have huge challenges in California around transportation, around housing affordability, around our 19th century water system that needs to be dragged into the 21st century, around climate change and the need to increase renewable energy, the barriers to healthcare access that still exist here, our underfunded education system, which really harms northern San Mateo County. We have a lot of work to do. You can ask my harshest critic, who has worked in politics in San Francisco, and they will tell you that agree or disagree with me. I know how to get things done. I work hard and I finish what I start. It would be a deep honor to represent our community in Sacramento. And I think that my effectiveness, if you look at who's supporting me, Mark Leno, Jackie Spear, Kamala Harris, Gavin Newsom, I would be honored to have your support as well.
On behalf of the North Peninsula Democratic Club, thank you for participating in our candidates forum. You both were terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.